Welcome, everyone, to the Aspen City Council work session of June 8th. We're excited to have our major employer and company, Aspen One, here today to share some of their past success and talk about the future. So thank you very much for being here. Let me ask one question first of council. We had an information-only memo. It mentioned the Wheeler Opera House. I see our Wheeler staff is here to answer any questions in case we had any on that memo. Does anyone have any questions? No. Okay. So, Mike, if you want to stay, you can, but you don't have to. Thank you. Thank you very much. And we'll go ahead with welcome Aspen One.
Thank you, Mayor Richards, and thank you all for your time. We really appreciate it. I'm Dave Tanner, the CEO of Aspen One. To my right is Jeff Buckheiser, the CEO of Aspen Skiing Company. To my left is Chris Miller, Senior Vice President of Sustainability, Community, and Advocacy for us. And we're excited to be here. Do we have the presentation up? Because you got to let us in. Sorry, give us 30 seconds, technical.
Yeah. There we go.
Come on. You can do it. There we go. All right. So this is obviously our first time doing this exercise, and we hope to actually make this an annual exercise if you guys would give us the time. As we go through this all, we're going to talk about a range of issues and pressures that all of us are managing and dealing with. And we know you know a lot of this, and none of this is meant to be critical of any collective history here, or all the efforts you guys are all undertaking every day. And we appreciate your efforts and your partnership and your support of the company that, you know, has existed as long as any of us can actually remember. You want to go to the first slide? So want to be clear on why we're doing this. We put this together because we think the Valley deserves a transparent look at where our business is. The real picture, not a polished dog and pony show. We want you to understand the pressures that we're navigating, why they matter, and what we think it's going to take to get through those pressures. Some of that requires your partnership, and we'll highlight where we think that is. We'll cover our history, the headwinds bearing down on our business, and how we're evolving to meet them, and what we're asking for. We want this to be interactive. This is meant to be a conversation. So please feel free to comment or ask questions anywhere as we go. We want this to be a dialogue. We don't want to just sit here and present pages to y'all. I'm on this one. Okay. I got 2 mics? All right. Ready? I feel like I'm, anyway. And we know, many of you already probably read the Aspen Times article that posted today, and it touched on some of the points that we're going to get to today. But we saved a lot for you guys to hear first. And so if you read the article already, consider it a pre-teaser. And if you didn't, well, you'll hear more of it all right now. As you can see on our agenda here, we got 4 chapters. The first is, a little bit of our history, which has been an 80-year history that has been incredibly successful in partnership between the community and our company. The second is an honest look at the headwinds that our company and the industry is facing in the ski industry. The third is how we're evolving in response. And the fourth is what we're hoping we can work together to solve. And we'll take that structure from there. Before we jump in, we think there's kind of an underlying theme to this. We want to pose a question. We're not going to answer it right now, but as you think through this, the question underlies what you're going to see is, are we a ski town? Can there be an Aspen idea without skiing? And we'll come back to that question at the end of the presentation. So Chris Miller will lead the first section here on our history and our partnership and success over the years.
Thanks, Dave, and thank you all. Chris Miller, as Dave said, I'm the Senior Vice President of Sustainability, Advocacy, and Community. I'm privileged to be in the role for about 14 months, filling the big shoes of my predecessor, Auden Schendler, which many of you know. So let me talk you through a little bit of the history here, and And you'll know this story better than I do. I'm 14 months in. But I think it's worth taking sort of a look back and reflect upon what's been built here collectively in this community before we dive into the present situation and how we meet the future together, right? That in many ways our past is the roadmap for the future. And stating the obvious, what's been built in this community took generations, and it reflects a long-term orientation that's really different than how most companies operate and how many resort towns think. And I'm, having spent the last 15 years at a publicly traded company, I can attest to the importance of the independence and our ownership structure and what that means for us in the community. We're not a public company that's answering to kind of shareholders every quarter. We're a family-owned business that's been investing in this place for more than half of the resort's life. Our current ownership has owned the company for 40 years. So, sort of a quick snapshot. I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time here. Again, you all know this. But what's impressive about this is what's been accomplished together, and in so many cases, these are things that could only happen in Aspen. When Lift 1 opened in 1947, the governor of Colorado was here to open it. 3 years later, Aspen was on the world stage. The first international ski competition, FIS ski competition, happened here, not in Sun Valley, not in Vail, happened here in Aspen. Free buses in 1983, right? Among the first communities to do free buses before it was even a thing. The Silver Queen gondola, longest of its type when it opened. And we continue to invest in housing the hub at Willits, $18.5 million project, the first all-electric workforce housing building in the state. So by no means are we sort of perfect, that's for sure, but we're really a company that's tried to put our money where our values are. And so many of the things that bring this community together are a result of the cooperation between the institutions in Aspen, the governments, and the ski company. And so we know that third spaces are disappearing, and these events that you see in front of you, whether Winter Skull, World Cup, the Friday morning uphill breakfast, they create kind of celebrated moments that our community enjoys, where people come together and where people run into each other unexpectedly. A quick snapshot at some of the impacts that our operations have. Our day-to-day operations translate into real investments in this community. $70 million in annual spend just on local vendors and suppliers and contractors. We have 2,500 people on our company's healthcare. Many seasonal workers have full-time healthcare by working as little as 275 hours. That allows those workers to go out into the community during the off-season, take their healthcare with them, and doesn't place a burden on other businesses in the community to provide those benefits. And then finally, right, our impact goes beyond just the money we're spending in the community. Our people give their time, they give their expertise, and we have a commitment to give back through philanthropy. So from our people co-chairing the Transportation Coalition for the 21st Century, to co-leading the Child Care Special Taxing District, to the 20,000 comped and discounted passes for teachers, nonprofits, local kids, the chamber, with a full value of $27 million annually. So it is a combination of both the operations of our company and the footprint of our people that really help make this community as vibrant as it is. So with that.
Take a breather there, anyone? Any comments or questions? We got to give you guys a little space to.
That's a lot. I'm glad you gave us a handout as well to kind of review more of those boxes.
We're not going to read you every number.
Yeah, no, and I think it's great you're making this presentation for us and for the community, because it's easy enough to live in the moment and forget the past or look with fear towards the future. And instead, we are trying to embrace the future and make sure we have a solid foundation.
Great.
Thank you for that. And I think for someone who's now been in this community for almost 3.5 years, been in ski towns my entire life, Aspen is, in my mind, the best place on the planet. And so I think amongst all the celebration and the great things we've done and the innovation that collectively we've driven, I think that it's always good to kind of be careful and to take a step back and say, hey, what are the challenges that we're facing right now, and how do we want to try to tackle those challenges? I think the first step for us in tackling the challenges is being very clear on the fact that we can identify them.
Let me just interrupt for 1 second.
May.
There's a Langdon dresser who has their hand raised as a call-in. We are not taking call-in at this time. We're not taking comment. This is a work session only. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Langdon, for your enthusiasm. So amongst the challenges, we've dialed them into 6 little buckets here, and we'll go through each one in a bit of detail. But yeah, it's clear we've got a consolidating ski industry. That's nothing new. When I graduated from CU in 1999, I wrote a paper on the consolidation of the ski industry for my business class. So something that's been brewing, but I think the impacts are real and something that we should talk about. Affordability. I think affordability is probably one of the more used words in our town and in our community in the Roaring Fork Valley, so we'll dive in on that. Linked to that is pricing exhaustion, the cost of running our businesses, the cost of infrastructure in our town and our community, and the impacts there, certainly as we all invest together and as we try to reinvest in our mountains. Okay, the other word that you can't go far without hearing is workforce housing. And so we want to talk about the efforts there that we've been coming across, what we're trying to do, but also this is very much a community problem, and we'll dive in on that. The other one you can't talk about or go far without talking about is traffic and congestion. So we'll hit on that with some of our thoughts and ideas, and then climate change and certainly if you're running a business that relies on snow, seasonal volatility is something that's a hyper focus of ours. So on to the next slide. So there's a lot here, and you do have it in your packet. But we are living in a world in our business with 0% annual growth in U.S. ski participation. That's going back effectively to 1996. Same number of people skiing today than there were 30 years ago, while the population has grown 30%. So we're seeing it much harder to bring the youth into the sport. We're seeing baby boomers age out. That's something that we're really focused on, and generationally, I think it's going to be a big focus for all of us, especially as the youth of our world focuses a lot on their technology and their phones and less on outdoor experiences, and we want to make sure that we're conscious of that and driving that forward. We believe that it'll take 2 millennials to replace every aging out boomer as we go through this. The boomers were a group of folks that loved skiing, loved the mountains, and we think as we see with millennials, they're taking fewer trips, they're staying less duration, and they're certainly spending less in our towns. So as Aspen Snowmass kind of tries to compete in the face of those headwinds, we see our visitation has been down 3 years in a row, and we'll get into it a little bit more, but what's the industry doing? It wasn't too long ago that Vail Resorts was 5 properties. They now have over 42. Icon or Alterra has grown. They have over 17 owned properties and I think 45 worldwide partners. And so they are consuming half of the nation's skier visits at this point. And while Aspen is a very well-known destination, we are competing for those visits. And that competition is getting harder and harder as we go forward. So, I think the premium independents like Aspen are having to make choices. I think we're fortunate to be backed by the Crown family. We've been able to reinvest and really try to drive an experience that is worthy of the visit. But other parts of our town kind of make that more difficult. And we'll jump to the next slide, please,
I just
Chris.
want to put a couple finer points here on the visitation if you go back. Everyone can look at this year, it was bad snow year, and that's why it was down. We were planning on this year being down on visitation before the bad snow came. We were down 21.5% year over year on visitation on our mountains. Now, we beat the Colorado market, which was down 24%. But on a high fixed cost, capital intensive business, those kind of trend lines are, as Jeff will get into, not great. And, as the bottom says here, 40% of the jobs in Pitkin County are linked to the ski activity. And so it's concerning. Go to the next slide. Any questions? I'm going to keep asking that just to make sure otherwise we'll just keep rolling.
Kick us out.
Just keep rolling. It's all good.
So it's more expensive, right? I don't think that this is a problem where the skiing is more expensive. As an example, our chamber Premier Pass has tracked exactly with inflation for almost its existence since 1962. It's everything around skiing has gotten more expensive. Many things in our town are much more expensive, but as an example, the Roaring Fork lodging numbers have outpaced inflation by more than 200%. So that part is definitely a headwind. And when you're thinking about attracting a younger, more vibrant skier to this town, staying here is becoming more and more difficult. The all-in Aspen vacation, just since COVID, is up 25%, which is tracking 3 to 5% higher than most of our competitors. The result here is that the guest mix is shifting. We're seeing a lot more lifestyle visitors to our town, folks that have the wherewithal to come to town for one night, do the Instagram post, hit the pictures on Main Street, and head out of town. And we believe that skiers are a more valuable guest. And back to Dave's question around, are we a ski town? I think we're here to say we definitely want to be a ski town. But we have to at least acknowledge that these other factors are happening and certainly making it a different decision for folks as they come to visit Aspen. To Dave's point, differently said, our paid skier visits are down 11% annually over the last 3 years. So it's not just this last season. We've seen that downturn averaged over 3 years in the double digits, which is concerning. And I think when the mix shifts away from skiers, we feel it. I think it might not be at the same time, but I believe there's a lag from some of what we're seeing, and that the community will feel a shift if people choose not to ski and they choose to make shorter trips to our community. So along with that, obviously it's more expensive for us, and we'll slip to the next slide.
Wait, just one other thing. No. When you think of a total cost of a trip for a family coming to Aspen, we only, as a company, can touch 20% of that total cost with our lift tickets, with our passes, with our restaurants. And so a lot of this problem is frankly somewhat out of our control, which is daunting. So.
Thanks for that.
Yep.
Not only that, our costs are rising. Operating costs for us are up 30% since COVID. Insurance, utilities, wages, materials, healthcare, all of these are structurally much higher than 5 years ago. Over a broader term, the Elk Camp chairlift that we built this last summer was $21.5 million. That same chairlift, if we built it in 1995, would have been $2.6 million. So that's a 8 times increase in the cost of the infrastructure that we're putting in. Onto housing, a single employee housing unit, by our estimation, is now costing over $1.5 million to build.
Can you go back on that one slide? I was just reading your last sequence, the loop.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, or the squeeze, costs are up.
Costs are up across the board.
Having a revenue ceiling because our pricing levers are a bit exhausted. Like, we
Right.
can't just keep taking price and assuming everything's going to be fine. And we've been trying to be mindful of that. It's certainly a challenge when your costs are going up like they are. Margins get compressed. So far, we've been lucky to keep on an investment track, but that's certainly at risk as we go forward, which would mean more aging infrastructure, which would mean a weaker guest experience, which I think then enters right back into the loop with, like, if that loop continues for a period of years, say a decade, I think you're looking at a very different picture here in this town.
And this squeeze is real across the industry. If you looked at Vail Resorts pricing just the year, they started pricing lower than inflation, which is a big issue, which is, this exact loop.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
And, I'll throw one other thing in here, and, the Crowns are the best owners in the world. I will say that to death. It's the reason I'm sitting here. They are incredibly supportive of this community, as you all know. But this asset, if you looked at it as an investment, does not have the returns most people think, and you would be shocked to see what they actually are. And so, more pressure on that picture does not help things.
Okay. Thanks.
Next slide, Chris. Some comments on the housing crisis. I don't think we can reliably staff our operation. 3,500 to 4,000 winter employees. Sometimes we've flexed up above that. I don't think without, some changes and some approach in housing that we'll be able to staff the resort at the same levels in the years to come. We're talking about a community-wide 5,000 workforce units short, 3,000 in the Upper Valley alone. The median home price right now at $3 million is a far cry from what 100% AMI can provide a worker in our town, which I think 100% AMI can afford you a $325,000 house. So quite the gap there. Anything over $2.5 million, I call it quite the gap. Home prices up 174% since 2019. We know COVID's there. That's a huge part of what we're dealing with, but wages cannot keep pace in any way for us to feel like the community that we all say and think that we have. Sorry.
Jeff, where does the 5,000 unit deficit come from?
So I think that gets into the gap that we're talking about. We believe, and I'll hit on this, the retirement gap. 37% of Aspen area.
Sorry to interrupt, Jeff. Where specifically does that number come from?
Oh, 5,000?
What's that? What housing study?
I think it's from that regional housing.
Regional housing study.
My bad.
Yeah.
Didn't understand your question, though.
The regional housing study.
Okay. Regional housing study? What was?
Yeah, that was what we all did to comply with the 1, 2, 3 state laws to get state housing dollars. And they gave us a presentation maybe a couple months ago,
Yeah.
the total needed in Picken County and Valley-wide, as well as Aspen.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. So the gap that I was just about to touch on, sorry, which I thought was going to answer your question, is the retirement gap that's upcoming. We believe our data shows that 37% of Aspen area workers plan to retire within the next decade, and most we think will age in place, meaning they're housing secure now. That doesn't necessarily mean that a senior manager on our team who's been with us for 40 years, who's housing secure, is likely not going to give their housing up for the next senior manager that's going to replace them. So the gap therein is in the replacement value.
I have been saying this for quite a while, and I do not believe our business community has really woken up to what will be happening when people start retiring. And I'm an example of that.
Yeah.
I've worked my life out, and I'm going to keep working for as long as I can, but it won't go on forever. And I think that what's really happened that people are unaware of is that you used to be able to perhaps see an employee buy a home in Carbondale or Basalt.
Yep.
And that is just not the case anymore.
Yeah, it's a valley-wide problem now.
It's the retirement cycle plus the housing appreciation level that's gone through the roof.
Yeah, and look, like I'm extremely proud of the work that Aspen Skiing Company has done on housing. 1,300 beds, but those beds are purpose-built for more of a seasonal workforce. And I think what we all need to acknowledge is that the beds that we need are not dormitory or single,
They're year-round workers.
One year in and out, kind of that kind of environment. We need beds that could be serviceable for families, for growing families, 2 to 3 bedrooms. Family-style housing for managers, for teachers, for first responders. And I think the important thing when we talk about housing is this is not just something that we're thinking about. And as we talk about solutions later on, I mean, we've worked hard in our development pipeline. We're currently active in discussions at Snowmass with the SHOP program down in El Jabal, what we're calling EJ Crossing. Both of those our intent is to partner, it's not just Aspen Skiing Company. It's what makes the most sense? Is it teachers? Is it firefighters? Is it emergency responders? Where can we partner so that we can not just solve this problem for us, but solve it, help solve it for the community as well?
And I would say, sorry to interrupt,
You
but
bet.
this tracks with everything that we're seeing at APSHA as well. People aging in place, and how are we going to move forward with this issue?
Yeah, I mean, it's huge. And you can see on the right side of the slide is some of our more focused numbers. I mean, we think we need another 200 beds by 2030, which, that's 4 years away. We think we'll need another 80 beds by 2035, and as we kind of ebb the flow there on the seasonal side. And then we're talking about 185 new family units on top of the 80 that we currently have by 2030, and then double that again for 2035.
These numbers are additive, and this is based on real hard math work, looking at the demographics of our workforce. So if you look at 280 beds and 370 units and multiply that times the 1.5 million average per bed, you see the size of the issue that we're talking about. And once again, this is not growing our business.
Yeah.
This is not adding employees. This is just demographics.
Yeah, and I think we tend to think that as we all come together to solve these issues, which, is obviously the work ahead of all of us, we're going to have to take a look at regional housing. We're going to have to take a look at zoning and entitlements, and what are some of the decisions that we're going to all have to make together to help with this crisis, because it's not going to solve itself. And one entity on its own, no matter how passionate we are, I don't think we can solve it on our own.
And the crazy part is, this community has been all over this for decades, is leaders in this, in the nation, and we still have this issue. And as Jeff said, our intent here with our leadership and, some of these big projects that we're going to try to get done is to partner with other entities in the community. We've already had conversations with a number of them to, whether it be 10, 20, 30, 40% of every development we do, bring in other partners to help be a leader in solving this for the broader community.
I think that that's accurate, and that's the way it's going to have to be going forward for so many things. It's, nothing like a good crisis to bring people together. Even
Why
though
we're
this-
sitting here.
This is a little bit of a slow rolling one, and so I don't know that everyone really recognizes the magnitude of it and how hard it is to catch up as you slip further and further behind.
And we've been trying to innovate around this already. If you look at the Tenants for Turn program, which is, where we give passes to the community to allow our folks to come in. It's been a successful program. It's, opened up a couple hundred beds for us, and this is still on top of that as well.
Right.
And it's more of the beds like what we have,
Yeah.
and not not necessarily solving the family housing kind of concept. that we're
I'll tell you, it's one of the things that keeps me up at night is, as we recruit, and once again, this is not seasonal, as we recruit management team levels, managers, directors into this, it is a barrier more and more to getting people to move here, just the simple cost.
We enjoy that same disadvantage as well when you're trying to bring in some of the, more complicated or specialized positions.
Technical roles, yeah.
And, I really appreciate what you're describing is what it would take for our company to sustain itself and continue as it's been. This is not about a growth proposal. And, our whole country is always based on this GDP and what is the growth rate and whereas it'd be nice to see us all try to find a steady state economy, that the circulation happens without always having to grow up and out, because we're limited, we're limited on water. And not even just talking Aspen specific, but I listened to some of the development plans of Silt or Newcastle, and they're like, oh yeah, we got the approval for 600 units, 1,000 units. I'm like, I hope you're going to have the water for 1,000 units in another 10 years, So those are challenging. And then, of course, they would like the transportation funding to come from here. And it's like, well, no one told you to build 1,000 homes where there's no jobs. So it's a little confusing that way.
We'll get into some of those concepts on this next slide as well when we talk congestion.
Thank you.
I've lived in a lot of communities. I've actually, aside from 4 years in college where I was in Boulder, never lived in anything but a mountain town. So I've seen skier congestion driving issues in a town. I actually don't think that's the case here. I live down valley in Missouri Heights because when I came to town, the reality that we just spoke about was real. So I find myself as a commuter up Valley, and I told Michael Miracle maybe after a year, I said my favorite days to come to work are Saturday and Sunday, because the workers are off the roads, the school's not causing problems, and you can actually get through, I think, the way town was intended. And so I don't think in this case that our congestion issues in this community are the result of skier traffic. In fact, I think it's the exact opposite. It's a lot of the things that we already discussed. You guys know it as much as I do. Snowmass Canyon is bursting at the seams. 22,000 daily visits through that canyon, up double from I think a decade prior to that. Or 2 decades, sorry. 30 to 40% of entrance to Aspen traffic is pickup trucks. It's service vehicles, largely servicing not just our hotel sector. I think that would be one thing, but I think it's the second home community and the building of new homes that are really part of that. 65% of Aspen workers are commuting from more than 10 miles away, and 23% are commuting from more than 50 miles away. That's a long way to go, especially when you know there's a traffic jam at the end of that line. We've shifted from a resort-based community to a residential support community in a big way. And back to our question of, do we want to be a ski town? I definitely want us to be a ski town. And I feel like some of the pressures that we've seen are related to some of these other, elements that we brought up, and congestion's a big one. It's awesome to come to a town and then sit in your car. I'd much rather have them up experiencing our open slopes and the way that in our world-class operations. So, anything else to add there, Dave? Nail that one. On to slide 17. This is our climate slide, and obviously Aspen Skiing Company has been known for a long time to talk about sustainability, to talk about the impacts and the things that we need to be aware of. The president of the FIS has called climate an existential crisis for the ski racing and ski competition community. We agree. Over the last month and a half, I've been at both the National Skiers Association annual conference and the Colorado Ski Country annual conference. Climate has been the center of those discussions. In fact, we just came from Colorado Ski Country, where it was reported in the state of Colorado that the average season length of 144 days this year came in at 129 days. I grew up in Winter Park, Colorado. I had dinner with the guy who runs Winter Park, and he mentioned that normally Mary Jane, which is not known for its snowmaking, has 144 days that they're open, and this year they only managed 79. So the climate and the snowfall, the impacts this year were second to none, but we're seeing that as something that we need to watch more broadly in the future. Average temperatures in our valley are up 3 degrees Fahrenheit since 1980. That also equates to 30 fewer days below freezing, or 30 days where frost occurs, less than what we had 40 years ago. By 2050, we're projecting that both our natural and effective seasons, so natural would be if we didn't have snowmaking, and effective with snowmaking and some support, will likely shrink by 20 days on both ends of the season. That's also concerning because it relies a lot on snowmaking. We're projecting to try and make snow 30% more than we have in the past, yet we'd have to rely on the freezing temperatures in order to do that. So that's if temps allow.
Water in the rivers.
And water, right?
And water.
A bad holiday week for our town doesn't just hurt that week. I think it can define an entire season now. We're at that point. This season, we were down 21.5%. Obviously, our steepest decline ever, worse than COVID. So we're heavily invested in snowmaking and on infrastructure, on automation, on technology. But we don't think that that's an offset that we can rely on. We're also leaning into other innovative solutions. snow blankets, snow storage, the elk camp battery, which we're installing this summer, which is a battery backup in partnership with Holy Cross, which will make the elk camp chair 100% renewable, no diesel backup. It will also provide storage for Holy Cross in the periods of time when we're not using the chairlift. But all of these solutions can feel like a drop in the bucket. They're really cool. And at the end of the day, it's a concern and something that we're extremely focused on.
A couple other things. I mean, our organization, I'm going to give credit to generations ahead of us, has been leaders in this space and trying to address it. We're doing everything we can as a company, and a lot of that has to do with not only making our own backyard clean, but trying to use our voice to create systemic change around climate issues. On the snowmaking investment, we've made massive investments in snowmaking, at least since I've been here. We're increasing the amount of investment we're doing. But that loop that showed you when you can't price and your costs are going up and you have to invest more in snowmaking, it affects that loop. I want to throw one other thing here. I'm sure all of you were on the mountains this year. We had amazing skiing this year. Our teams in snowmaking and grooming are the best by far in the industry. It was really frustrating. Our net promoter scores, which are our guest scores that we track, were even year over year, despite the snow being as horrible as it was. And it's a testament to our teams. They just do incredible work out there year over year. But it's a big issue.
Yeah.
Go ahead, John.
Hey, I just wanted to mention really quick, the 30 days, fewer days below freezing compared to 1980. That statement has been used for a while now. And so I actually read an article that Hannah was quoted as using that statement, and I was like, I think it's been longer than that. So I looked it up, and that was taken between 1980 and 2018. So it's been 8 years since that happened. And if you do the math using that math, that's 6 more days that we've lost. And I think looking at this last winter, it's been more than 6. But
It felt like more than 6, didn't it?
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
That's a good.
I really would like to correct that statement somehow, just so people
Yeah.
can grasp the.
We can ask our environmental health department to try to update it, see if we can update
I
it.
think it's
not
safe to say
finding-
there's no number on this
That's where it
page
came
that's
from.
getting better.
Right, and I'm not finding fault, I'm just saying,
Ironically, right?
this is only until 2018.
Did you get any good spring laps in any month of the year? Probably. But you also experienced 70-plus degree weather for a 10-day period in March.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for our community. You look at Holy Cross and the innovation that they've done. That was the first month ever that they hit 100% renewable for the grid.
Yeah.
And perfect timing when, we're experiencing.
It can be done.
These just, catastrophic things for the ski business. And I'm grateful we got it through it. And I would say that likely, and then I'm grateful to Dave's point that our team is as good as they are at what they do. And it's scary because what they did and what they went through to put that out there this year was a challenge. And it wasn't, I don't want that to be there every year.
We barely got our early season events through, X Games and, those early January events barely got off. Because the other thing that happened this year was it was so warm in December, the temperatures weren't even good enough to make snow.
Right.
And variable as well. Any other questions, comments?
Did we miss any of the challenges? I think we nailed a lot of them.
I think it's amazing you
Federal
guys are.
government, maybe?
Oh, yeah, we'll stay out of that.
I found it amazing that you guys were able to keep Aspen Mountain open until the 19th of April, like you said you were going to from the beginning.
Goes to the teams once
I thought
again.
it was really cool that people were willing to walk down Little Nell, because that's what makes a ski town.
It is.
People will only work for it.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I think, aside from the recent comments about the helicopter flying over town, one of the biggest comments I got in the last couple months was just how grateful everybody was that Aspen stayed open until it did.
Okay. Thank you for the dialogue. We appreciate it. So that's the honest picture of what we're navigating, and not every resort's having this conversation. In fact, I don't know if any resorts are having this conversation. If you look down the road in Telluride, they're locked in a painful public conflict between ownership and the community, a breakdown of trust that is going to take years to repair, and that's what it looks like when a relationship fractures. You know, Vail, if you look at what their ski patrol went on strike in the middle of the season, we handle things differently. We negotiated a new contract with our ski patrol. Jeff and I sat down with them and pounded it out over months of trust and work and got them to a 3-year agreement that is best in the industry with no strike and no breakdown. And, the point is what we have here is rare, and everybody in this room has had a part in making that true and a stake in keeping that way. That being said, we've been at work for the last 3 years transforming our business to offset the headwinds that we just laid out. When Jim Crown recruited and hired me coming up on 3 years ago, the strategy that he and the larger Crown family and myself, landed on was an intentional evolution and transformation of our business, not because we were a failing business by any means, but because Jim and all of us could see these pressures building, and we knew that any business that's not evolving and innovating is essentially decaying. Our goal was to offset the pressures in the Valley and in our core ski business by catching up on investment in the ski business and other areas like employee housing that we described. We were building new capabilities and innovating within our organization to better serve our guests and our employees, and very importantly, expanding the business outside the Valley. Expanding the business outside the Valley through our hospitality platform and through Aspen Collection gives us the growth that allows us to have the capital to reinvest back in the core business. In essence, we wanted to evolve and transform to remain innovative, vibrant, resilient, and perform financially well enough to remain independent and family-owned for at least the next 80 years. Next slide. This slide. We are a values-led business, and we're really proud of that. What makes us values-led is not just the philanthropy that Chris talked about, our volunteers hours, as important as those are. It's how we incorporate values in our day-to-day operations. It's investing in the first all-electric on-mountain restaurant in the industry. It's giving our frontline hourly workers the first-ever bonus in the company's history last year. It's using our platform to press for economy-wide solutions to the climate crisis. We're by no means perfect, but we hold ourselves to a higher standard, rooted in our values and in this special place. And we expect you to hold us to that standard. Our vision, as you can see up here, is the Aspen idea, in pursuit of renewing the mind, body, and spirit here in this place in service of inspiring a better world. Here's what the business looks like today after we reorged it about 2.5 years ago to move from one Aspen skiing company into a broader set of businesses managed under the Aspen One umbrella. The 4 mountains are always going to be the core of our business with Aspen Skiing Company. That's where our roots are and will always be. Around that, we've built a growing portfolio of hotels, residences, and clubs under Aspen Hospitality, under the Little Nell and Limelight brands in Aspen, in Snowmass, in Sun Valley, in Mammoth, and Denver, and most recently adding Boulder to the mix as well. We're currently building a Nell in New York City and Rockefeller Center that opens in September of 2027, and also building a Limelight in downtown Charleston, and we have a pipeline beyond that continuing to expand nationally. Aspen Ventures is our innovation engine to take the Aspen brand and ethos into different categories, including Aspen Collection and Apparel, an emerging experiences business, and we also have associated real estate development activities around all this. All of that is managed under the Aspen One umbrella and a new and strengthened set of shared services. Think marketing, digital, sustainability, finance, HR, legal, partnerships, strategy, capital allocation, all under that umbrella. We want to be clear about what this expansion is and isn't. It isn't taking our eye off Aspen. It's how we build the financial resilience to stay here in Aspen as an independent, family-owned company for another 80 years. The growth funds the stewardship ultimately, and that's the model.
Dave, where does 8 years come from?
Where does the 80 years come from?
Isn't that what you
Because the
said?
company's coming up on its 80th anniversary. Sorry, we should have explained that. Yeah, the company was...
Did you say 80 or
80? 80.
Thank you.
Yeah, the company was formed in December of 80 years ago, coming this December, whatever that's, 1947. The first operations happened in January of 1948. So you'll see us coming out with a lot of 80 stuff, just like we did 5 years ago.
Got it. Thank you.
Make sense?
Nice.
Any other questions? So our foundation is completely intact. Our vision, you saw, We have Roaring Fork culture as our DNA. Long-term stewardship, employee care, community commitment are super important to us, and none of that's moving. What's changed is how we operate, and I'm sure you guys have heard buzz about this through the community, and it's all intentional. We're running as a genuinely integrated enterprise, not a collection of separate businesses under a ski business. We're pursuing growth deliberately and with sharper performance expectations, because stewardship without financial performance really isn't sustainable ultimately. We've built structures that make us more accountable to each other and to the community, same values, but a company structure and management philosophy that's appropriate for the amount of capital that's being invested in this business. I'll get to that right now. We've invested over $1 billion of investment into this business in the last 3 years, with more in flight, to better serve our guests, to protect the ski business, expand the hospitality business, and to begin to expand the Aspen One brand globally, and to invest, importantly, in the livelihood of our employees and our communities we're in. We've had seamless generational leadership transitions. There's been much consternation about that, but we're really proud of that. We've made huge investments and on-mountain investments in the pacing of the lifts that we're putting in. You guys are seeing it summer after summer in snowmaking, in restaurants. The Ulleroff opens this winter after $42 million of investment over there. In facilities, in the back end of the business, our recent ski patrol contracts and investment. And so significant amount on-mountain investment. We're not pulling back, but that loop is out there if the visitation doesn't stabilize. Like I said, we've made huge hospitality investments, opening up all the hotels. And I won't see too much, but there's going to be some additional investment in the Little Nell coming here soon. We've improved our corporate capabilities and our operational and executional discipline to power our evolution and growth. And all this, importantly, while keeping our guest NPS scores tracking and our employee engagement scores. And we watch those measures, make sure we're not putting too much change into the business, and we're continuing to be world-class for our employees and our partnerships with the community. So the bottom line, we're becoming a more focused and resilient family of businesses rooted in the Aspen idea and the culture here in the Valley. We're built to perform and reinvest and stay in business forever, and that's not just a slogan, it's a commitment. And our success is rooted in the success of this community. It's always been true, and given everything we just walked through, it's even more true now than ever. So we've been straightforward about our challenges. Now we want to be equally straightforward about where we need your help and what we're prepared to commit to in return. Many of the things you've seen are ours to manage, but housing, traffic, and the long-term question of what kind of community the Valley is building, those can't be solved by one employer. They require policy decisions, zoning flexibility, and a shared willingness to work on the hard things. And that's what we'll discuss next. And it's also, we're going to come back to the question at the start, is Aspen a ski town? We asked this, and we've just spent a lot of time here with the data. I'm not going to rehash everything we just talked about, but all of that is what happens when the answer to the question starts to drift, when a ski town slowly becomes something else. Not by decision, not by default, a gated community for the ultra-wealthy, a playground for influencers, a brand without substance that made it worth the brand in the first place. And, we think the answer is the same answer we've had for the last 80 years, and so did Walter Pepke. Pepke didn't arrive in Aspen in 1945 with a business plan. He arrived with a question, not unlike the one we just asked. He called his answer the Aspen idea, a community of peace with opportunities for man's complete life, where he can earn a living, profit by a healthy physical recreation, with facilities at hand for the enjoyment of art, music, and education. And that was the founding charter of many parts of this valley. It worked because citizens, government, and a nascent ski industry worked together, and not because any one of them could do it alone. Then, coming out of World War II, the imperative was peace. Now, it's balance. A ski town, a real one, where people who make it run can afford to live here, where kids are born and go to school and stay, where the mountain is the reason, not just the backdrop. A community can't flourish if it's fracturing. Pepke knew that, and we all know that too. I'm not going to read all the numbers on this slide, but here's the picture of where we are against that vision. And it isn't meant to be critical of our community or any single actor. It's simply data. No one person or organization built this, and no one single actor can fix it either.
Thanks.
But there's some pretty daunting numbers on this page. So I'll pause here. Any other questions or comments before we?
Just go back to that last one for a second. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. So we want this next slide to be a dialogue. And, this is, where we stand with some level of specificity and what we're committing to and where we need your guys' help. And on skiing, we will protect, invest, grow the ski experience, investing in the mountain and the programs that keep skiing accessible. What we're asking is that all of us commit to keeping skiing at the heart of this valley's identity. And that manifests in land use decisions, in supporting our innovations on the mountains, and how we talk about Aspen and the priorities we set together. We believe that keeping skiing at the heart is the answer to the question we asked at the beginning. On housing, we're going to build more affordable housing. You saw the numbers we're up against to support our workforce and the broader community, and at no cost to Valley taxpayers. SHOP and EJ Crossing that Jeff mentioned are underway, both with headwinds in the community. More projects are coming. We're going to build with our capital and not just fund or not just ask for taxpayer dollars, but we're an active participant in driving the solution for the overall community here. What we need partnership on is streamlining approvals for employer-sponsored housing, embracing cross-jurisdictional collaboration, overcoming the NIMBYism that stalls projects that deliver on master plan goals. On traffic, we're going to advocate for mass transit and prioritize reducing single occupancy vehicle trips. And what we're asking is making congestion reduction an equal priority to infrastructure-based solutions. And it's reframing the conversation. Traffic is generated by jobs and residential growth and not skier visits. We are obviously huge supporters of the airport modernization, and we can't understate the importance of getting the airport done. We think the community needs to be innovative and open to new infrastructure ideas that are bubbling out there, like the nascent gondola thinking that spawned from the great work of the Transportation Subcommittee. And you guys are doing great haste on the entrance to Aspen, and we applaud that, and we thank you for that. That is obviously incredibly critical to the community. And, as I said here, I want to really put a shout out to the Transportation Subcommittee for the great work they've done, and we really appreciate. On locals, we're always going to be about honoring people in place. I think that, the chamber pass and the level of pass subsidization we do for the community is an example of that. What we're asking is we need to protect and expand the programs that keep local families here: childcare, local preference housing, essential worker support. And on transparency, like I said at the beginning, we're going to publish and talk about this more openly as a company on an annual basis in plain language every year. And what we're asking is everybody in this valley is hold to that same level of transparency and public accountability as we all navigate this together. So, go back. I mean,
We stick on that one.
yeah, that's the intent.
Thanks. Firstly, the whole presentation's been great,
Thank you.
albeit a little somber.
That's the point.
Yes. Yes, this past season was awful, but I try to look at this long-term and holistically, and I'm optimistic that some of the trends that we've seen in the past don't last forever, but regardless, I think that there's more to be done, and we can and should deal with some of your points here. But I wanted to dig in on some of this stuff to make sure I fully understand it. Yep. So the second point on the right, streamline approvals for employer-sponsored housing. You talk about NIMBYism stalling and derailing projects. Can you cite examples of
Sure.
where that's happened?
I mean, it's not your jurisdiction,
learn
but
from those mistakes?
if you watch what's been going on at SHOP in Snowmass, it's on land we own. It's a vehicle maintenance facility today. We've gotten resistance from the HOA that's there, out-of-town lawyers representing folks who, whose real estate value, frankly, is dictated by being on our mountain. And the irony is pretty thick when we have employees living in vans who are working in that mountain, but, we're getting resistance at that level. We get questions about whether this is a community benefit in building housing on a vehicle maintenance facility.
On your own dime.
On our own dime. Yeah. That's going on. We haven't solved that situation yet. And so that's a beautiful example. EJ Crossing, we're similar story. You guys read it in the papers as well. We're, less further along in that. And, you know, we anticipate in anything we come with the future, we're going to face the same thing. And I don't know how, you know, with the scale of the numbers we showed you, how do you look at this situation? And there is no perfect housing project. Nothing lines up perfectly, right? We have to, you know, accept as a community solutions that are suboptimal on the 20 dimensions that exist. We might have to give on 2 of them. They're not all going to fit in the perfect box, but we are not going to solve the housing issue unless we start thinking that way. And I'll tell you, this is, you can fast forward 10, 15 years here. If we don't solve this issue as a company, we are not going to have the same level of service on the mountains. There's a world where, you know, seasons compress, days where an operation compress, God forbid even a mountain compresses.
or chunks of the mountain, we just don't have the staff to operate.
And add on to this, you know, the international J1 issue that is now pressured as well in staffing and you know, and once again, this is not just us. We know this is the whole community, and we're not sure if everybody's looking at it the same scale, but we want to be leaders in partnering and bringing the community along here. Is that?
Yeah, that's helpful. And I would say I encourage you to spread that message. And in this role, we sure hear a lot of feedback and criticism and support of various projects. And it's our role to sort of make what we feel is in the best interest, the decisions that are in the best interest of the community. But I think the way that you're calling it out is important, and I encourage you to continue doing that beyond us.
Thank you.
Doesn't mean that everything is the right project to be.
No, obviously. And listen, we are not, I hope you, this should go inside, but I'm going to say it here. You know us, we're not trying to steamroll the community. We're not trying to be profit at all costs. We're not trying to jam things through that happens at other companies. That's not us, right? We're part of this community. We live here. Like, we're not of that mindset. And obviously not everything's going to work. But the example I gave you, like, yeah, it's a little suboptimal on some angles, but come on.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to say, and it is, I think our entire community needs to evaluate, and I challenge you with this.
Yep.
Evaluate sort of what requires humans and what doesn't. I think we're in a place, you've done a little bit of that with some of your checkouts at Dawn Mountain restaurants, but I don't think you're going far enough. I think the technology exists to do so much more. And I think that there's jobs, and I've challenged our internal organization, the city of Aspen, to do the same thing. There's jobs that don't need to exist in this valley. And just because we are so dedicated to this valley doesn't mean that we need to house every job here. And so I think that this is actually something that makes our community healthier and more successful long-term, is by embracing that. It's not to the downfall of this community, it's to the benefit of this community.
Completely, let me just add a couple of points. We are looking at technology solutions to this, whether it be, if you look at a lot of snowmaking now, there's technological solutions there. We've got entire efforts going on in AI to be able to, you know, to leverage that for efficiency. Mm-hmm. Most people don't know this because we don't talk about it widely, you know, and I probably took some internal bullets for this, but everything from the company used to be here in the Valley. We now have a very substantial Denver office that includes our entire hospitality leadership team basically sits there. Several back office functions actually exist there now, so we are thinking about that directly. We've also broken the mold, and as much as this is delicate, and I handle it very delicately, that not everybody needs to live in Aspen from an executive level and whatnot. And that's tough to hold together with the remote work, and do you hold the ethos and the culture and whatnot, but we're working at those solutions. And, you know, I'll give another example, one more. We looked at our on-mountain staffing protocols over the last year, and Jeff did a great job.
I was just going to mention that. I mean, over the last 2 years, we've done a workforce optimization project, and that has resulted in, I'll use an example to explain it. 3 years ago, our average full-time employee was averaging about 25 to 26 hours a week, and we didn't know it. Yet we were out there fighting for housing and trying to find, you know, anything possible to kind of help land additional employees. And so we put in a program, we looked at the data, we tightened up our scheduling, we looked at a myriad of different things, and we have now reduced by 225 employees in the wintertime. And I always say, and now they're getting 35 hours a week, not 25 hours a week. And our housing was more flexible for us to make hires late into January this year. And so we're doing it ourselves with both technology, to your point, but also just by being a little bit more like taking a lens of stewardship to how we hire and how we schedule, and putting that onus on ourselves. And we've made an incredible effort, and we'll continue to do that.
That's great. I'd encourage you to advertise and talk about that more,
Yeah.
because again, it's something that at a shallow level can seem negative,
Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly.
but actually increases the health of your business, increases the health of all businesses in our community if they take your lead and figure this out, because we can't house everybody in this community. And we shouldn't house everyone in this community.
Yeah.
We have to house the people that really make an impact on our guest experience and our local experience, and lean into that and see how we can be more efficient elsewhere. Otherwise, we'll just never be able to.
And by the way, those employees who got more hours now had a better experience, because when we don't have overtime for employees who come here seasonally, that's a huge issue for them. And our guest scores held in there. Like, I mean, anytime you touch anything on the mountain, it's like, okay, we're going to ruin our guest experience. We're not perfect, but like we're still keeping the same service levels as well.
So yeah, please promote what you're doing there. I think you can be leaders in that and set an example. Thanks.
Other comments or questions, board members?
Just a couple comments. I just want to say how grateful I am that we've had such steady, thoughtful ownership for as long as we have, and I hope that continues for a long time. I'm grateful for the current enlightened leadership. It's been a really seamless transition from where I'm sitting, and
Thank you.
I'm really grateful that we have you guys at the helm. I think your snapshot of the patrol strike speaks to that directly. It was a disaster for Telluride when they had theirs. It was a disaster for Park City, and it didn't happen here because cooler heads prevailed. So thanks for that. I think our communities and the ski company's success is mutual, and it depends on our mutual cooperation. And I think our cooperation has been excellent up to this point, but I do think it could be better, and I think it will be.
How so? We can take it offline, but we're
Just
open for
based
feedback.
on what I've seen happen in the last couple of years, I've already mentioned this to a couple of you, but the snow covers are a big deal to me, snow insulation. The fact that you've taken on emptying people's trays so the composting doesn't get polluted by garbage and so on. Taking that responsibility on yourselves instead of having the different refuse chains contaminated. Those little steps make a big difference towards what we're all working towards. And there's other examples that you've stated tonight. So thanks a lot for the work that you're putting into this. And I got to say, this morning's article was a great lead into tonight's meeting, so thanks for that, too.
We debated whether we were going to let it go out before this meeting or after, and it was quite a debate. But we feel like, you guys can see, we want to be able to get this out in the right way where it doesn't get twisted the wrong way in the media. And, we're here as partners to you guys. We're humans. We're trying to do our best with a complex situation.
And I think a big piece of it for us is I was worried a little bit that this would come off as like, oh my gosh, like the world's falling apart. And there's so much for us to celebrate.
Yeah.
But if we just walk around and pat ourselves on the back and say we're doing a great job and never really innovate, then I think there's risk. And I think that's the spirit of which we're trying to bring to you guys today.
Again, the product that you gave us this winter, with the meager snowfall we had, the grooming was incredible. You gave us the very, very best product that you could, and I know the whole community appreciates it.
Thanks, John.
Christine?
Thank you for being here and having this conversation. It's appreciated, and it's a lot to think about, and I don't think we'll solve anything or find any solutions here, but appreciate you bringing it forefront. One of the, and I think it's woven through your presentation, but one of the answers to are we a ski town is I think we're increasingly a real estate town, and I'm not sure that that's a choice that any of us wanted to make, but the reality that we're facing, and that is increasingly driving a lot of the decisions and economics here. And
Clearly.
it is what it is. But we can continue to address it and weave that into our own decision-making up here at the table. You talked about some of the physical capital and then highlighted keeping in mind human capital, and I think that's really important. And the essence of what a ski town is that the people who live here and work for you and work for everyone, all the other companies in this town really believe in that that's what we are. And I think that that's a cultural mindset. And so thanks for highlighting that. And in terms of some of these partnership ideas, a lot of it I support, building, housing, childcare, transportation, I sat on the coalition. So I look forward to seeing some of the specifics come forward, but appreciate you highlighting them.
Thank you.
Sam?
Yeah, thank you all for being here. I love this conversation. I think it amplifies the symbiotic relationship that we're always looking for here at the city. And honestly, I want to say to Christine's point, I think we suffer from our own success. Most of the problems we have is because this place is just too awesome to handle. It's why the real estate's great. It's because you guys do such an incredible job. It's because the ski area is amazing and because it's paradise, so why wouldn't the value be so high? I think the toughest thing is always balancing all these things.
Yep.
You add more housing, you might add more congestion, you might add more environmental impacts. It's just like where is the line between all these things? As Rachel mentioned, I believe in things like carrying capacity. I don't know how many people this valley can handle and how much water we have and the resources we have. So again, to the balancing point of just like what we can actually do and try to focus on quality over quantity sometimes and not just like growth for the sake of growth.
Yeah.
With that, I wanted to say I'm very proud, at least at this point, of the initiatives that the city's taking on in many of these regards. God knows we support the ski industry and skiing. We got members of CAST that, everyone's dedicated up here to it. So you ask, and I'm sure the answer will be yes, to help improve the ski industry here, because we are a ski town through and through. Housing-wise, I know this council has gone through many projects where we've been very thorough for nonprofits, but we have ended up approving those after careful consideration, even though, because we don't like to blame others, but we do have a lot on our plate to try to solve that next topic, which is congestion. And God knows we're working on the entrance to Aspen, but I do believe there's a lot more we can do. I appreciate you guys being on the Transportation Coalition, and I do think you have a powerful voice in that regard, and really would love to hear it more as far as what solutions are. It's not always easy from the political perspective because of the divisive nature of the topic. Words get twisted, trust is tried, but coming from the ski company and talking about the existential threat and like what actually needs to be done is a huge benefit. And obviously, anything that you guys do event-wise that's locally focused is hugely important to us, especially for our identity. And, I have friends and family visit me in Aspen, and they talk about, especially as they follow me around, how much of a community it actually is, and I'm very proud of that. And I know, like, the ski company can feel, some people talk about, like, getting too corporate. So keep leaning into that community aspect and try to, as you described tonight, really publicize the non-corporate nature, even though you're in the business of making money. You're obviously, this is a small venture for the Crown family comparatively, so it should be more community oriented in that regard. And then with that, I did want to ask you a few things. One of them was something you probably won't answer. Can we get a World Cup this upcoming winter?
Alpine World Cup?
Yeah, like
No.
FIS.
No.
Not this.
I don't think it's in the cards. We have always maintained that we would be there because we are a venue that's high in elevation, and as the FIS is challenged with lower elevation European venues, we know that there'll be a moment where they need us, and we'll listen, certainly. working on a broader plan around bringing that back on a more dependable basis. First things first, 1A is a challenge to that, and we got to get through that. And once we've sorted through some of those dynamics, we'll be able to have a much more direct conversation around World Cup.
Okay. I'm glad it's on your radar and you're developing
Yeah.
a plan, because the years that I've been here for the World Cup are very, very special.
Well, I've always dreamt that, 2050 would be a great year to do the Alpine World Championships, make it 100 years since the first one.
That would be very nice.
It is awesome.
The other ask, I'm not sure if this has ever been on your guys' radar, but I've always meant to ask, is about like a skills bike park. We kind of nixed the one that was supposed to be in the Merle open space, and I've always dreamt that maybe the base of Buttermilk might be a better spot for it. And I've always said, before you even answer, that even though might not be in the city, I would very much be personally in favor of using city funds to help it get off the ground and maintain it, because I do think it's
Those funds
important.
secure. And we're working on a Buttermilk master plan, which is the first step there.
Okay.
Which we hope will be submitted in short order, and then we can start having a discussion about that.
So it's on your radar?
Yes, sir.
Okay, cool. I sort of wanted to touch on something you said earlier about, it's a kind of controversial one at times, but Palm Tree Fest. And I know it brings a lot of millennials here, and I appreciate X Games and Palm Tree and you bringing a younger, different crowd. So I just wanted to express my appreciation there, because that is the future, and that the wealth transfer in this world and country is going to eventually trickle down to the millennials and Gen Z and Gen X of the world, and they're going to be the ones spending the money. So
Attention is scattered, right? Their attention is scattered.
Yeah.
This is reality.
Yeah. And then lastly, to my first point, I really just wanted to say it's nice to see you guys here, and hopefully you can come back with more concrete asks and action items, and be a friendly critic to us, so that we can make ourselves better.
Fantastic.
Can I
you.
address one thing you said, Sam,
Yeah.
just on the carrying capacity in the valley? Like, agree with that concept. And let's remember, everything we're talking about here, we're not trying to grow visitation. We're just trying to stabilize it. We care so much about the guest experience. You see what our line situation is versus every other resort. We're not compensated on top line growth. That is not how we work. And so that's super important. But with that, with the inflation and pricing dynamics we talked about, we've got to be able to innovate on our mountains. And that doesn't mean we're trying to build Super Bowl stadiums on the mountains or anything. But we're going to be coming forward with things that are innovations that are, for the guests that are coming there, so they spend, and to Aspen, so they spend more time on the mountain. So they spend, frankly, more of their time more of their money with us, right? And that's a positive feedback loop when, we can keep the guests here, we can not grow the guests too much, but get them engaged on the mountain in different ways and spending their money here. That helps us offset all these pressures as well. And so we're going to need your support to do that.
Just one comment off that is just like studying sustainability in college. I realize very obviously, but the sustainability goes beyond environmental sustainability, business sustainability, and community sustainability. These are all factors that I'm glad you're thinking about as you move forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, like others, I just want to thank you for being here today and preparing the presentation and giving us all a lot to chew on and think about. And I've heard a lot of, comments from my board members that also give me a few comments to make. First, I'd just say, it was over 20 years ago, Auden Schindler and I both went to Geneva, Switzerland for a conference on the ski industry that they were hosting over there. And the question Auden and I were asked to present on was, is it better to have private ownership of ski stations or corporate ownership?
That's easy.
And so building off of John's comments, I would just like to say I think private invested family, as we've had, we have been very, very fortunate. And you can offer my thanks as well for over the years. I also have been around long enough to have heard presentations about how we have to grow the sport, and we just need to get some more of these B and C tier ski areas and make it cheaper for young kids, and they'll become skiers. And it just hasn't really worked out that way, or maybe there hasn't been as much investment in that. And part of it's the snow, because these smaller ski resorts, the mom and pops, have been closing across the country. And, I'm from Maryland, Pennsylvania area, how chancy the snow is there. And so, it's a totally different item, and I'm sure you're working very closely with the Chamber of Commerce already. But I do have to think about the destination marketing funds that are significant with them. And it's always been my understanding in the past that the ACRA markets the summer and the ski company markets the winter. And maybe looking at those declining numbers, we should see a little shift in
You're
that.
bigger proponents of that shift that you're talking
Okay, well,
about.
I just wanted to.
Summer will
I
never,
don't know,
for
and I
our
didn't even
business,
hear that
summer
from anybody
visitation
else.
will
I
never
just
make
am
up for
familiar
the
with the
pressures we're
history
talking
on
about in
this.
winter.
But there's what was a cry that we really need marketing dollars, and the sales tax on the lodging was passed. I actually passed the first marketing tax when I was mayor. But it might be at these levels now generating more than is really needed, although their shift to destination management has been very, very important. But maybe we should look at the whole year cycle a little more collectively together. I really both like the name of your presentation of intentional evolution, and I think that's what we're doing here with the city as well. We're really, the Ways to Work is a program, Workways, that we're looking at what can be remote, what can be partially remote, what do we have to have in-house or not, and how do we deliver the services better. I've been talking with Pete a lot about how we potentially integrate different types of AI programs or AI activities into solving our problems, managing our data, things like this. And so partnering on innovative solutions is also what we're about and what we're trying to do and work with others. So I greatly appreciate the long-term thinking that this presentation is. This is not about what happened yesterday, and it's not about what's going to happen tomorrow. And honestly, in my role and in the years I've spent in Aspen, I have come to realize that this is a real time of generational shift, and the nostalgia for the past versus the embracing the future. And it's something that can really cloud people so that they don't see all the really wonderful things going on around them right now because of what I don't have from 10 years ago. And we are aging as a community, and we are changing as a community. But you talk to people who may have arrived 3 or 5 years ago, and they'll tell you it is a great place, and they're having a great time. And they don't understand why other people are so upset that it's not the way it was in 1989. And that's just something the city and the ski company or none of us are going to be able to really fix, because when I go home to where I grew up or the beaches I visited as a child, they are nowhere like what they were when I remember them. And in mourning the past, it's a matter of, pulling forward and bringing forward the best of the past. And being a ski town is our past. So I'm fully on board with this. But we all have to work through this, the changes and angst that people are seeing. And I had heard a Harvard professor I spoke to not long ago tell me that, the definition of change is loss. And you don't realize that, but you're losing something that's familiar. You're losing the way you always did it. You're losing what the restaurant used to always be. And I could sit up here and name 50 restaurants I used to love in Aspen that have all come and gone, or retail shops, or things like that. And it's about how do we create the most positive today and the most positive future. The type of concerns that you're discussing over housing, I could see coming decades ago, and I think most of us could, but we're hoping it wouldn't really happen. And it's one of those things that, Sam, you kind of described it briefly, but it's this desirability loop that we created. Well, let's save more open space, and so it's really beautiful, and we don't look like Bell, and let's create a mass transit system so not everyone has to drive all the time, and let's build more childcare centers for our family, and let's make a new ARC recreation center because, not everyone can afford support the private clubs, and let's save the red brick for community art since our artists aren't getting in the galleries downtown. And so we're constantly kind of backfilling and trying to hold on to the best of the Aspen we all knew when we first arrived here. And that desirability is, of course, why everyone who has the means and the ability would want to live here, unless they like beaches better, you know. So I really admire what you're doing to handle the changes and to look forward, and we're trying very vigorously to look forward as well. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I think that's all.
That's
If
it.
anybody has any
Anything
closing
else?
comments or thoughts?
I think the one additional thing that I'd say is you brought up a lot of, you made it very clear that about this retirement wave and the aging in place. And I would encourage you to continue beating your drum on that and advocating for policy change and evolution in policy. One thing that I've advocated for and have unfortunately so far been fairly unsuccessful in is incentivized right sizing within the APSHA system.
Yep.
And it's very disappointing to me that that's not happening. Maybe now isn't the right time, but I think that there is a desire for that within the system. I hope that you can continue advocating for that idea or whatever the next idea is to help people who are ready move along and make financial sense of moving along to make room for more active members of the workforce in what should be a workforce housing program at its core and has slipped away from being that in a lot of ways.
I'm going to have to comment. We have a disagreement on that. I do not think that you get committed long-term community members if they're told they have to move out of their house at a certain age. And as someone who has committed more than 40 years of my working life to Aspen and been paying off my mortgage for about that same length of time, for someone to create a new rule that I must sell and move to somewhere else and create new friendships and a new life at 66 or 70 or 75 years old is absurd. And the reason that we have not pursued the right-sizing monetary benefit was the numbers were starting to be, hey, how about giving me $100,000 a bedroom and I'll move out, even though I was planning on moving out in another 3 years anyhow. When we're just trying to hurry up the life and death cycle of people who naturally die. It is a message to our seniors that they're not appreciated or their 40 years of working life here were not appreciated. And I think the two taxes that we use to pay for affordable housing, neither of them mention the word workforce housing. Workforce is how you get into the housing, it's how you stay in the housing, it's how you fulfill your requirements to stay in your housing. But the idea that we're going to say we would like to get rid of the seniors who built the 80 years of Aspen so that we can have a new workforce, maybe all J1s, maybe more active, hardworking people, I think it's totally against the Aspen values and the community plan that we have all endorsed.
Rachel?
To be clear, I never said anything about forcing anyone to do anything, so
Yeah, well, it's,
I don't want that to reflect on me that I suggested that. That's not what I said and not what I mean.
when you talked about other policy changes, perhaps I was reading more into that because it certainly has been a topic of discussion. I apologize.
Rachel?
John?
Just to add to your comment, I want to go back to the quote from Walter Pepke. Walter Pepke had an answer. He called it the Aspen idea. In his own words, a community of peace with opportunities for man's complete life. I think that directly speaks to what Rachel just was referencing.
Yep.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for your time. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your leadership. These are not easy problems to solve, and it takes all of us, and we look forward to continuing the conversation in the decades of
Appreciate
partnerships.
it anytime. Be in touch, and we'll look forward to some great 4th of July.
Yes.
See you down at the carnival.
Yes. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.
We are a ski town.
Okay,
Thank you.
Grassroots, thank you very much. We are adjourned from the work session.